33. And if you do not engage in this righteous war, you will lose the dharma of yourself in glory, and be guilty of sin. If Arjun does not fight in this war of matter and spirit, which will afford him access to the Supreme Spirit, to the immutable, eternal Dharma, he will be deprived of his inherent capacity for action and struggle, and wallow in the mire of repeated birth and death, and of disgrace. Lord Krishna then clarifies the nature of this disgrace. 34. And all will forever speak of your disgrace, and such disgrace is worse than death itself for a man of honor. People will long speak ill of Arjun's unmanliness. Even today's sages like Vishwamitra, Parashar, Nimi, and Shringi are remembered chiefly for their transgressions of the path of righteousness. So worshippers reflect on their dharma. They think about what others will say of them. Such thought is helpful in the process of spiritual seeking. It provides the urge for persevering with the quest for the ultimate reality. It also provides support over a certain length of the spiritual way. Infamy is even worse than death for honorable men. Delhi Uso 62. 35. Even the great warriors who have a high regard for you will then scorn you for having turned your back upon the war out of fear. The mighty warriors, in whose esteem Arjun will then fall from honor to dishonor, will believe that he had retreated from the war due to cowardice. Who are these other great warriors? They, too, are seekers who make their way strenuously along the path of spiritual realization. The other formidable warriors who oppose them are, on the contrary, desire for sensual pleasure, anger, greed, and attachment, that drag the worshipper with equal tenacity towards ignorance. Arjun will be disgraced in the eyes of the very people who now hold him in high esteem as a worthy seeker. Apart from this, 36. There can be nothing more painful for you than the disparaging and improper words your adversaries will speak against your valor. His enemies will malign Arjun and utter words about him that should not be spoken. A single blemish is sufficient to bring upon one a shower of slander and abuse from all directions. Even words, improper for speech, are spoken. Can there be a greater grief than being an object of such calumny? So Lord Krishna tells Arjun. 37. Rise up with determination for the war, because if you die in it you will attain to heaven, and, if you win, you will attain to the most exalted glory. If Arjun loses his life in the war, he will go to heaven, and which is to be with Swar, the indestructible God. The impulses that guide one. UIO Bhagavad, Chapter 63. Towards the world of matter that is external to the self will be retarded. And his heart will then overflow with the divine qualities that enable one to realize the Supreme Spirit. In case he wins, however, he will attain to the state of redemption, the noblest accomplishment. So Lord Krishna exhorts Arjun to get up determinedly and prepare for war. Usually by the verse under examination it is understood that if Arjun dies in the war, he will be privileged to live in heaven, but that if he is victorious he will be rewarded with enjoyment of worldly pleasures. But we cannot but remember that Arjun has told Lord Krishna that, in neither a realm made up of all the three worlds, nor even in an Indra-like lordship over gods, can he see the means that can remedy the grief that is wearing out his senses. If he is to achieve only all this, he has said, he will not fight at any cost. Nevertheless, Lord Krishna exhorts him to fight. What greater reward than domination over the earth in case of victory and celestial pleasures in case of defeat does Lord Krishna promise Arjun in order to make him fight? Arjun is, in fact, a disciple aiming at the truth and excellence that lie beyond earthly and heavenly joys. Knowing this, Lord Krishna, the accomplished teacher, tells him that even if the time allotted to his body expires in the course of the war and he does not succeed in reaching his goal, imbued with divine riches he will gain an existence in Swar, the changeless and eternal. If, on the other hand, he succeeds in the struggle while his temporal body is still alive, he will achieve the sublimity of God and thus attain to the state of the highest glory. He will thus be a winner both ways. If he conquers he will attain to the highest state, and if he loses he will find an abode in heaven and enjoy godly pleasures. There is profit in victory and there is profit too in defeat. The point is reiterated. 38. You will not incur sin if you get up and fight the war, treating victory and defeat, profit and loss, and happiness and sorrow, alike. Megkya. Sukha 60. Yatharth. Lord Krishna counsels Arjun to regard with an equal mind happiness and sorrow, profit and loss, and victory and defeat, and prepare for war. If he participates in the war, he will not be guilty of sin. He will gain the state of sublimity, the most precious possession that is possible for a man to have, in case of success, and achievement of godhood even in case of defeat. So Arjun should deliberate well on his gains and losses, and prepare for war. 39. This knowledge which I have imparted to you, O Parth, is related to Gyan Yag, the way of knowledge, and now you should listen to me on Karm Yag, the way of selfless action, with which you can successfully sever the fetters of action as well as its consequence karma. Lord Krishna tells Arjun that the knowledge he has spoken of is related to the way of knowledge. What knowledge is it except that Arjun should fight? The substance of the way of discrimination or knowledge is only that if we fight according to our disposition after a careful appraisal of our capacity as well as of profit and loss, we shall attain to the state of ultimate bliss if we win, and to heavenly, godlike existence even if we are vanquished. There is gain in both cases. If we do not act, others will speak disparagingly of us and look upon us as having retreated like cowards, and we shall be disgraced. So to forge ahead on the path of action with a careful understanding of one's innate nature is itself the way of knowledge or discernment. We usually come across the misconception that no war needs to be fought on the path of knowledge. It is said that knowledge involves no action. We think in our vanity, I am pure. I am enlightened. I am a part of God Himself. Accepting it as an axiom that excellence begets excellence, we sit idly. But this is not the way of knowledge according to Yogeshwar Krishna. The action, which has to be performed in following the way of knowledge is similar to that which has to be undertaken for less than Chapter 6, The Way of Selfless Action. The only difference between the two ways is that of attitude. The man who treads the path of knowledge acts with a proper evaluation of his situation and with self-reliance, whereas the man who takes to the path of selfless action also acts, but with reliance upon the mercy of the adored God. Action is a basic requirement of both the ways, and in each of them it is the same, although it has to be done in two different ways. The attitudes behind the action in the two ways are different. So Lord Krishna asks Arjun to listen to him while he speaks of the way of selfless action, armed with which he can effectively destroy the bonds of action and its consequence. Here the Yogeshwar has, for the first time, spoken of karma, although without explaining what it is. Instead of dwelling upon the nature of action, he describes its characteristic traits.